I always hated March in Boulder. The wind plucked the first flowers, and the sun deceived me with its warmth. The same kind of deception as my marriage. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, covered in papers. The workday had ended 3 hours ago, but the clients wanted the report earlier. Oh shit, I muttered, noticing an error in the calculations. The house was silent, except for the barely audible whirring of the refrigerator. Dexter was supposed to be back at 7:30, but the clock was already showing 8:45. I wasn't worried, I didn't care. In 26 years of marriage, my worries had faded away like the patterns on the old carpet in our bedroom. Tallulah Woodward, 54 years old, is an accountant who works from home. Once a beautiful woman with blonde hair, now she is just a tired face with the first wrinkles and gray hair that I no longer tried to hide. Why should I? Dexter had stopped noticing me a long time ago. My phone vibrated. A message from my daughter. Hi, I won't be able to make it this weekend. Work. No emotion, no apology, no, I miss you. Apparently, Ashlyn had forgotten the last time she said something like that. I typed a short, okay, and put the phone down. My relationship with my only child had been reduced to exchanging short text messages every few weeks. It wasn't always like this. When Dexter and I first got married, our home was full of laughter and dreams. We moved to Boulder, Colorado because we fell in love with the area while on vacation. The mountains, the friendly people, the cozy atmosphere. It seemed like the perfect place to live a happy life. Dexter got a job as a real estate appraiser, and I took care of the house. When Ashlyn was born, we were over the moon. I spent the first years raising my daughter, and then I started working as an accountant from home to be able to combine work and motherhood. I don't remember when everything started to fall apart. Maybe it was when Dexter got a promotion and started spending more and more time at work. Maybe it was when I got carried away with my career and stopped meeting him in the evenings with a warm dinner. Or maybe we were just tired of each other, and our love was dying slowly, unnoticed day by day. Now our home on the outskirts of Boulder, which once seemed like a cozy nest, had become a cage. Every room was saturated with silence and mutual grievances that we hadn't even expressed. I heard the sound of the front door opening. "I'm home," Dexter said as he entered the kitchen. He was a tall man with reddish hair that was thinning but still made him look good. He took off his jacket and threw his keys on the counter. He smelled of alcohol and something sweet, some kind of perfume. "You're late," I said, not looking up from my papers. "I had an important client." "I had to stay late," he replied, opening the refrigerator. "What's for dinner?" "Nothing. I didn't cook." Dexter sighed and gave me an annoyed look. "What have you been doing all day?" "Working, Dexter. You know, that weird thing that makes money. Like you, supposedly." He pressed his lips together and rummaged through the fridge for something edible. "We're out of beer. Put it on the shopping list." He muttered something under his breath and pulled out the remains of yesterday's stew. He silently put it in the microwave and waited, leaning on the countertop. "How was your day?" I asked, more out of politeness than interest. "It was okay. I was evaluating a new house in the northern part of the city. Interesting architecture. The owners want to sell it as soon as possible." "Uh-huh," I replied, returning to the calculations. "And you?" "As usual." The microwave beeped. Dexter picked up a plate and sat down at the table across from me. He ate in silence, not looking in my direction. For a while, the only sound in the kitchen was the sound of a fork banging on a plate. "Ashlyn texted that she's not coming over this weekend," I said, finally closing my laptop. "Again?" He looked up. "When was the last time she was home? Christmas? Thanksgiving?" "Oh, right." He nodded and dug back into his stew. "We would have talked about it one day, maybe even argued about it. Dexter always thought I was too soft on my daughter, letting her drift away from us. And I accused him of being too critical of her, of never approving of her choices. Now we didn't care. Ashlyn had grown up and gone her own way, leaving us alone with our emptiness. "I have to go to Denver on Saturday," Dexter said, pushing his empty plate away. "A client wants to meet in person." "On Saturday?" I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I might be late into the evening. Another client." Over the past 3 months, there had been a suspicious number of them, especially on weekends. Dexter started staying late at work, going to some meetings, coming home late, and every time he smelled like someone else's perfume. I wasn't stupid, but something prevented me from asking the question directly. Perhaps the fear of hearing the answer. Or worse, the fear of realizing that I didn't care anymore. Okay, I said. I'll be busy too. I have to finish the quarterly report. Dexter nodded and got up from the table. He put his plate in the sink. He didn't wash it, just put it down and walked into the living room. Soon the sounds of the TV came from there. I put the papers away and went into our office. It was divided into two parts. My desk with the computer and a small space for Dexter, where he sometimes worked with documents. He rarely used it lately, preferring to work in the office. I turned on the desk lamp and opened his desk drawer, looking for a stapler. Papers, pens, paper clips, nothing special. But in the corner, something sparkled. A small earring with a turquoise stone. It wasn't mine. My heart beat faster. I took the earring and examined it carefully. Cheap jewelry, not my style. I always preferred simple silver jewelry. Tallulah? Dexter's voice from the hallway made me flinch. I quickly tossed the earring back into the drawer and slammed it shut. Maybe I left it at the office? Dexter appeared in the office doorway, looking at me suspiciously. What are you doing there? Looking for a stapler, I answered, trying to sound calm. He walked over to his desk and opened the top drawer. Here, take mine. I took the stapler, avoiding his gaze. His closeness did not make me feel warm, but a strange sense of anxiety, as if I were next to a stranger. The man with whom I had lived most of my life had become a stranger. Thank you, I muttered, and quickly left the office. That night I lay awake, listening to Dexter's steady breathing next to me. He always fell asleep quickly, as if there was nothing in his life that could disturb his sleep. Or maybe there was. Maybe he found happiness somewhere on the side, with the owner of a turquoise earring. I thought about our daughter. Ashlyn is 31 years old now, working as a designer in Seattle, 800 miles away. The distance between us was not only measured in miles. When she went away to college, I hoped that our relationship would grow stronger and more mature. But with each visit home, the tension only increased. She saw what our marriage had become. She saw how Dexter and I had become roommates who tolerated each other out of politeness. And it scared her. I could see it in her eyes. Perhaps she was afraid that she would meet the same fate. Or worse, she had already seen signs of it in her own relationships. The last time she was home, we had a fight. Dexter criticized her career choices. I tried to defend my daughter, and she accused us both of never really supporting her. You don't even realize you're living a lie, she yelled as she gathered her things. You created this travesty of a family, and you want me to be a part of it. Well, you know what? I don't want to. I want to live a real life. I didn't understand what she meant at the time, or I didn't want to understand. But now, lying in the darkness next to a man who may have been dreaming of someone else, I began to realize. Dexter and I had indeed been living a lie. We were lying to each other that everything was fine. We were lying to ourselves that it was okay to be together without love, without respect, without real intimacy. We lied to the world, putting on the masks of happy spouses when we left the house. I thought about my life, about how I ended up here. I used to have dreams of graduating from university, traveling, making a career. But then Dexter appeared, a handsome and confident economics student who promised me the world. I fell in love, got married, and had a baby. And gradually my dreams dissolved into routine, household chores, and caring for my family. When Ashlyn started school, I tried to go back to school, but realized that I was too far behind. So I took an accounting course and started working from home. It gave me some financial independence, but it didn't solve the main problem, the emptiness in my life. I turned on my side, watching Dexter's profile in the dim light coming through the curtains. Once upon a time, I could stare at him for hours, studying every feature of his face. Now it hurt to look at him. I remembered the first time I noticed changes in his behavior. It happened about 6 months ago. He started taking better care of himself, bought new clothes, changed his perfume. He started staying late at work, going on business trips more often. And when he was at home, he was constantly checking his phone, as if he was waiting for some important message. At first, I tried to ignore these signs, to pretend that I didn't notice anything. Then I started looking for an explanation. Maybe he had an important project. Maybe he was trying to get a promotion. But now, after finding the earring, I couldn't deceive myself anymore. I quietly got out of bed, trying not to wake Dexter, and went to the kitchen. I poured myself some water and sat down at the table. The moon was peering through the window, illuminating the familiar kitchen where I had spent so many hours of my life. Cooking, cleaning, helping Ashlyn with her homework, balancing checks. My phone blinked with a message. Who could be texting at 3 in the morning? I picked up the device, thinking maybe it was Ashlyn, but I saw an unfamiliar number. Your message has been delivered to Dexter Woodward. Strange. It must have been some kind of technical glitch. I hadn't sent Dexter any messages. I clicked on the notification and my phone opened the message thread. Dexter. Can't wait for Saturday, missed you. Unknown number. Me too. Don't forget to buy your tickets. Dexter. I already did. The flight leaves at 9 in the morning. Meet me at the airport? Unknown number. Yeah, I'll be with my family. My dad's still not happy about it, but my mom's fine with it. Dexter. Don't worry. Tallulah doesn't suspect anything. She thinks I'm going to Denver for a meeting. Unknown number. Are you sure? She seems observant. Dexter. She's too busy with her paperwork to notice anything around her. Relax. I sat there in a daze, reading these messages over and over again. So there would be no trip to Denver. Instead, there would be some sort of flight, with some woman and her family. And Dexter was openly lying to me, confident that I wouldn't notice. There was a lump in my throat, but no tears. It was strange, but I felt not so much pain as anger. Anger at Dexter for deceiving me, at myself for being blind, at our marriage for turning into a farce. I quietly put the phone down on the table. I had to think about it. I shouldn't jump to conclusions. Maybe there was another explanation. But deep down inside, I knew the truth. And I knew I had to do something about it. Outside the window, it began to dawn. A new day in my old, broken life. But something had changed. I had changed. The cracks that had been appearing in our marriage for years had finally reached the point of no return. And strangely, it gave me a sense of relief, as if I had finally woken up from a long nightmare and realized that I could just get up and leave. I took a sip of water and looked at our house. So many memories, but most of them faded, lost their color. This house had long since ceased to be a home, turning into a cage, a set for our fake game of family. Returning to the bedroom, I realized that I didn't want to play this game anymore. I deserve more than that. And maybe Dexter does too. Maybe his betrayal is just an attempt to find the happiness we lost with each other long ago. I got into bed and closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. Dexter snored next to me, not knowing that I knew about his plans, not realizing that something in me had broken and fallen back into place at the same time. I have to make a decision, but not now, not in a state of emotional shock. I will wait, gather more information, weigh all the options, and then I will do what needs to be done. After that night, I decided not to throw tantrums and jealousy scenes. Something changed in me, as if a new space opened up where I could watch my life from the outside, like a performance in a theater. And that's what I did for the next few days. I watched. Dexter didn't notice any changes. He still left for work early in the morning, returned late at night, and hardly spoke to me. He seemed to be comfortable with this silent arrangement. I decided to find out more about his secret life before making any decisions. On Thursday, I decided to go to downtown Boulder to buy groceries. Usually I ordered them online, but I needed to get out of the house, get some fresh air, and be around people. The day was sunny, although the wind still reminded me that spring was just beginning. I put on a light jacket and went to the supermarket. I liked walking in the city center, looking at people, looking in the windows. It reminded me of when Dexter and I first moved to Boulder, when we were excited to explore the new city, meet our neighbors, go to cafes. But over the years, we began to go out less often, and then stopped altogether. After shopping, I decided to go to a small coffee shop that had recently opened on Pearl Street. I wanted to drink coffee and read a book I had brought with me. It was just a simple diversion, but even that felt like a small victory. I was doing something for myself, something that wasn't about Dexter or work. The coffee shop was cozy, with large windows and soft chairs. I ordered a latte and sat down at a table in the corner where I could see the street. I opened the book, but I couldn't concentrate on the text. My thoughts kept coming back to the messages I'd seen on Dexter's phone, to his lies, to the turquoise earring. Elliot, how many times do I have to tell you? You need to apply by the end of the week or you'll miss the deadline. A sharp female voice caught my attention. A young woman in her 30s, with short blonde hair and bright makeup, was sitting at the next table. She was talking on the phone, not really caring about being overheard. I know you're busy, but this is your future, she continued, tapping her fingernail irritably on the table. Yes, Mom says you have to do it too. No, she can't pick you up. We're going shopping for the trip. Yes, the same one. On Saturday. I tensed when I heard about Saturday. Of course, it could have been a coincidence, but something made me listen more closely. No, Dad doesn't want to go, you know how he is. But Octavia will make him, don't worry. The woman laughed. Yes, Bryn will be happy you're coming. She says it's very important to her, to both of them. Bryn. The name rang like a bell in my head. I tried not to stare at the woman, but I couldn't help but notice that she was wearing earrings with a turquoise stone, just like the one I found in Dexter's drawer. Okay, I'll see you at home, the woman said. She ended the conversation and started looking for something in her purse. I looked at her cautiously. Well-groomed, stylish, with an expensive bag and watch. One of her earrings suddenly fell out when she tilted her head sharply to get her lipstick. The earring rolled almost to my table. I bent down and picked it up. Excuse me, I said, holding out the jewelry. Your earring. The woman looked at me and smiled. Oh, thank you. These clasps keep coming undone. Bryn gave them to me, said it was a special stone, but the quality… She rolled her eyes. They're very nice, I said, trying to sound calm. Turquoise? Yes, Bryn likes that kind of thing. She's a photographer. Everything has to be special. Your sister? The woman nodded as she put the earring back on. Yeah, the younger one. I'm Vrep, by the way. Tallulah, I answered automatically, regretting telling her my real name. But something told me that Vrep had no idea who I was. Nice to meet you, she said, although it was clear that she wasn't really interested in talking to me. She looked at her watch. Oh, I have to go. I have to get to the flower shop before it closes. Have a nice day. She quickly gathered her things and left the coffee shop, leaving me feeling as if I had just entered a parallel reality. The woman whose earrings I had found in Dexter's drawer was the sister of a certain Bryn, and she, along with her brother Elliot and parents Forrest and Octavia, were preparing for a trip on Saturday. The same Saturday that Dexter was supposedly going to Denver. I sat in the coffee shop for a long time, thinking about this strange coincidence. Could I have misunderstood everything? Maybe they were just similar earrings? But my intuition told me that I was on the right track. The next day, I decided to follow Dexter. I had never done anything like this before, but now I felt I had to know the truth. He said he was going to an important meeting, but instead of going to the office, he headed downtown. I kept my distance, watching his tall figure in a business suit. He walked confidently, checking something on his phone. Finally, he stopped at a small gallery and went inside. I waited for a few minutes and cautiously approached the window. I could see through the glass that it was a photo gallery. Black and white photographs of nature and cityscapes hung on the walls. And there, in the center of the room, stood Dexter, talking to a young woman, slim, with dark hair pulled back in a loose bun. She was gesturing vigorously, pointing to one of the photographs, and Dexter was looking at her with an expression I hadn't seen in a long time: admiration and warmth. I quickly walked away from the window, feeling my heart pounding. I didn't need to see anything else. It was her, Bryn, the woman Dexter had planned a secret trip with. Instead of going home, I headed to the park. I needed to think, to understand what I was feeling. Surprisingly, the first thing I felt was not jealousy, but resentment. Not because Dexter had found another woman, but because he had lied to me, thought I was so indifferent or stupid that I wouldn't notice the change in his behavior. I sat on a bench watching the children playing on the playground, their laughter and carefree spirit seeming so far away, as if they were from another era. Dexter and I used to be like that. Young, happy, in love. When did everything change? And most importantly, could things have been different? Over the next few days, I continued my observations. By chance, I met an elderly couple in a supermarket. The man looked stern and constantly grumbled, while the woman smiled patiently and stroked his arm. Judging by the conversation, they were Forrest and Octavia, Bryn's parents. They were discussing an upcoming trip, and I learned that they were flying to California, to San Francisco. On Friday night, Dexter came home late, smelling of alcohol and the same perfume. He was in a high spirits, which hadn't happened in a long time. "Hi," he said as he walked into the kitchen where I was preparing dinner. "Something good?" "Just pasta," I replied without turning around. "Do you want me to heat it up?" "No, thanks. I already ate." He went to the fridge and took out a beer. "I have a meeting in Denver at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock? I raised an eyebrow. "How are you getting there? By train?" He looked a little confused, but quickly composed himself. "Yes, by train." "Why do you ask?" I stirred the pasta. "When will you be back?" "Late tonight, don't wait for me." I nodded, feeling a strange emptiness inside. Not pain, not anger, but emptiness, as if everything I felt for Dexter had evaporated, leaving only a shell behind. He went to the bedroom and I stayed in the kitchen, stirring the pasta mechanically. I knew he wasn't going to Denver, but to the airport to fly to San Francisco with Bryn and her family. I knew that he wouldn't be back until the evening, and that he might be there for the whole weekend. And I knew I had to decide what to do next. That night, lying in bed next to Dexter, I couldn't sleep for a long time. I thought about how we got here, in this marriage without love, without respect, without honesty. I thought about whether I could forgive the betrayal if Dexter had confessed, if he had apologized. And I realized that it wasn't about the betrayal, but about the fact that our marriage had been dead for a long time. We were just afraid to admit it. In the morning, Dexter got up early, just like he said he would. He packed a few shirts, pants, and hygiene products in his suitcase. I watched him, pretending to wake up by accident. "Are you leaving already?" I asked in a sleepy voice. "Yeah, I want to catch the morning train." He leaned over and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. When the front door closed, I lay in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling. Something in me finally broke. Not my heart. It stopped hurting for Dexter a long time ago. It was fear that broke. The fear of being alone, the fear of change, the fear of admitting that my life hadn't gone the way I dreamed. I got up and went to the window. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in pale pink. A new day. Perhaps a new beginning. Later that day, I went to the city center again, ostensibly to buy groceries, but really to be alone with my thoughts. I went to the same coffee shop again and ordered a latte. This time I sat by the window watching the passers-by. And then I saw him, Elliot, Bryn's brother. I recognized him from a photo I had seen in the window of the gallery where Bryn worked. He was tall, with dark hair like his sister, and carried a violin case. Walking beside him was Vrep, the same woman I had spoken to a few days ago. They were arguing about something. I couldn't hear their conversation, but judging by their gestures, Vrep was irritated and Elliot was making excuses. They stopped right in front of a coffee shop, and Vrep started taking something out of her bag. I turned away, afraid that they would notice me, but continued to watch out of the corner of my eye. Vrep took out an envelope and handed it to her brother. He opened it, looked at the contents, and nodded. Then he hugged his sister, and they went their separate ways. I drank my coffee and left the coffee shop, thinking about what I had seen. These people, members of the Prescott family, were part of Dexter's other life. The life he aspired to, the life from which he came home with a twinkle in his eye and the smell of someone else's perfume. Returning home, I suddenly felt like a stranger in this city where I had lived for more than 20 years. Streets, houses, shops, everything seemed familiar, but at the same time distant, as if I were looking at them through glass. And I realized that I wanted to leave. Not just from the house where Dexter and I lived, but from this city, from this life that had long since ceased to be mine. At home, I got on the computer and started looking for information about divorce, about the division of property, about the possibility of starting a new life elsewhere. I wasn't sure I could do all of this, but the very fact that I was looking for options gave me a sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in a very long time. That evening, I called Ashlyn. Our conversation, as always, was short and tense, but I found the strength to say, "I think Dad and I are going to get a divorce." There was silence on the other end of the line, and then Ashlyn asked quietly, "Why now? After all these years?" I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. Because now I finally found the courage to admit to myself that I deserve more than a life with a man who doesn't love me. "Is it because of another woman?" Ashlyn asked bluntly. "But it's not about her. It's about us. It's about the fact that your father and I stopped being happy together a long time ago. I just didn't want to admit it." Silence again, and then, "I will support any decision you make, Mom. I just want you to be happy." These words, spoken in my daughter's quiet voice, gave me more strength than anything else in recent years. After talking to Ashlyn, I sat on the couch for a long time, thinking about my life. I remembered being young, full of dreams and hopes. I remembered the moment when I first met Dexter, when I fell in love with him, when I believed that he would be my happy future. And then I thought about the woman I was now. Tired, disappointed, but still alive, still able to feel, dream, change. And I realized that I had to give myself a chance for a new life, even if it means starting from scratch. I remembered Bryn, the young photographer who fell in love with my husband. I didn't hate or envy her. Perhaps she gave Dexter what he lacked with me: excitement, passion, a sense of novelty. Maybe they really loved each other, and this trip to San Francisco was an important step for them. I didn't know if Dexter was planning to break up with me, or if he just wanted to continue living a double life. But it didn't matter now. I had made the decision for myself. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. It was as if the huge burden I had been carrying on my shoulders for years had finally begun to shift, giving me the opportunity to squeeze my shoulders and breathe in. In the morning, I woke up with a strange sense of determination and peace. I knew what I had to do. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but it was the only way forward. I called an old friend of mine whom I hadn't spoken to in years. "Marilyn, it's Tallulah. I need your help." Fear and doubt receded, leaving only an understanding of what to do. Marilyn, an old friend of mine who worked as a realtor, promised to come to me in an hour. In the meantime, I decided to check Dexter's office again. As always, his desk was in perfect order. Dexter was always meticulous about his things. I opened the drawers, looking through papers, bills, receipts. Nothing special. But in the last drawer, under a pile of old magazines, I found a folder labeled Project SF. My heart beat faster. SF, San Francisco? I opened the folder and froze. There were pictures of Dexter and Bryn together. They were hugging, laughing, looking at each other with love in their eyes. The photos were taken in different places: on the beach, in a restaurant, in some park. In some of them, there were other people: Vrep, Elliot, Forrest, and Octavia. They looked like a friendly, happy family. I looked at the dates on the back of the photos. The first one was taken over a year ago. A year. My husband had been cheating on me for a year, maybe longer. And all this time I didn't notice anything. Or I didn't want to notice. Under the photos were documents. Information about some real estate in San Francisco. Pictures of a house overlooking the bay. Information about the area, layout, price. And a copy of the deposit check signed by Dexter Woodward and Bryn Prescott. They were buying a house together. They were planning a life together. I sat down on the chair, feeling a strange numbness. Not pain, not anger, but numbness. It was as if I was watching someone else's life falling apart. Only it was my life. Mine and Dexter's. 26 years, erased from memory by a single folder of photos. The doorbell rang, snapping me out of my thoughts. Marilyn stood on the doorstep, a slender woman my age with a short haircut and a penetrating look. "Tallulah," she hugged me. "How are you?" "I've been better," I tried to smile. "Thanks for coming so quickly." "What else are friends for?" She walked into the house and looked around quickly. "So tell me what's going on. You were very mysterious on the phone. I told her everything about my suspicions, about the earring I found, about the overheard conversation, about the photos and documents. She listened silently, only nodding occasionally. When I finished, she took my hand. What do you want to do? Sell the house, while it's still there, and get out of here. Marilyn raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? That's a big decision. Absolutely. This marriage died a long time ago. We both know that. He's already building a new life with someone else. Now it's my turn. She nodded, pulling her laptop out of her bag. Good. From a legal point of view, you have the right to sell the house, since it's in both your names. I don't care about that, I replied. I just want to get my share and start a new life. Marilyn told me at length about the legal aspects, the documents to be signed, the possible consequences. I listened attentively, realizing that it was important, but in my heart I had already made my decision. Okay, she finally said, closing her laptop. I can find a buyer quickly. I have a client who is looking for just such a house in this neighborhood. He's willing to pay a good price and won't hesitate for long. How soon can we get it done? If all goes well, 3 or 4 days. But it will be very fast, Tallulah. Are you sure you're ready? I glanced at the photos of Dexter and Bryn still on the table. The next few days flew by in a blur. Marilyn brought in potential buyers, a young couple with a child who had been looking for a house in our neighborhood for a long time. They fell in love with our house at first sight. No wonder. I put a lot of effort into making these walls feel cozy. It's ironic that all these years I've been building a nest egg that I'm now leaving. We quickly agreed on a price. It was a little below market value, but I needed to sell the house quickly before Dexter returned. Marilyn helped me with all the paperwork, using a power of attorney that Dexter had signed a few years ago. Back then, we were selling our old apartment and buying this house, and the power of attorney was drafted so that I could sign documents on his behalf in real estate transactions. He probably forgot about this power of attorney. I hadn't. While Marilyn was doing the paperwork, I started sorting my things. What to take with me to my new life and what to leave behind. I went from room to room, touching the things that had accompanied me for the past 26 years. Each of them had its own story, its own memories. The wedding photos on the wall, young, happy faces that didn't know what was coming. Ashlyn's children's drawings, which I carefully kept. The porcelain vase Dexter gave me for our 10th anniversary. The sweater I knitted all winter trying to distract myself from the tension that was building between us. I decided to take only the most necessary things: clothes, personal belongings, a few mementos, documents, everything that could fit in my old sedan. I'll leave the rest and let Dexter decide what to do with it. I don't need these material reminders of a life that is over. The only thing I took from Dexter's things was that turquoise earring. I don't know why. Maybe as evidence if he ever tried to deny his betrayal, or as a reminder to myself about the importance of being honest and listening to my heart. On the third day after Dexter's departure, all the documents were signed and the money was transferred to my personal account. I left half of the amount on the joint account. As an honest person, I wasn't going to cheat Dexter, even though he hadn't been honest with me. Let him have his share of the house sale. I called Ashlyn and told her my plans. I'm going to Portland, I said. I've always wanted to live there. Mom, are you sure this is what you want? Yes, dear. For the first time in years, I'm absolutely sure of my decision. And Dad? Does he know? I didn't say anything. He'll know when he gets back. I'll leave him a letter. Ashlyn sighed. Do you want me to come? Help you move? No, darling, I'll manage on my own. But come visit me when I get settled. I've missed you. I miss you too, Mom. Her voice sounded warmer than it had in years. It was as if my decision had changed something between us, broken down an invisible wall. Maybe it had. Maybe she respected me for finally finding the courage to change my life. The next day, the day before Dexter returned, I finished packing. My old sedan was filled with boxes, bags, and traveling suitcases. All that was left of my life fit into one car. It was both sad and liberating at the same time. I walked around the house one last time, saying goodbye to each room. The bedroom where Dexter and I slept next to each other without touching. The kitchen, where I had cooked thousands of breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. The living room, where we used to watch movies holding hands and then sit in silence, each with our own phone. Ashlyn's childhood room, which we turned into a guest room when she left for college, and which was rarely used because hardly anyone came to visit. So many memories, so many years. I ran my hand along the wall as if saying goodbye to the house that had witnessed both our happiness and our disappointment. Now these walls will become the home of another family, who I hope will be happier than we were. I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote a short letter to Dexter. Dexter, I know about you and Bryn. I know about your house in San Francisco, about your plans. I'm not going to get in the way of your happiness. The house is sold. Your half of the money is in our joint account. I'll file for divorce as soon as I get settled in a new place. I hope you find with her what you didn't find with me. Tallulah. I attached the letter to the fridge with a magnet so he wouldn't be able to miss it. I put the house keys next to it. Then I took my bags and left without looking back. It took me 2 days to get to Portland. I stopped only to eat and sleep in a motel for a while. I didn't want to give myself time for doubts or regrets. My eyes were on the future, on the new life that awaited me in a city I had never been to, but had read so much about. Marilyn helped me find a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood in Portland. I rented it for 3 months, with an option to extend. This was enough time to figure out if I liked this city, if I wanted to stay here, or if I wanted to look for something else. The apartment was small but cozy. The windows overlooked a quiet street with maple trees that were already starting to turn green. I unpacked my things, put up a few photos, Ashlyn as a child, my parents, a few pictures with my friends. Not a single picture of Dexter. Marilyn called me twice a day, checking in on me to see how I was settling in and if I needed any help. She also told me that the new owners had already moved into our house, now theirs. What about Dexter? I asked, unable to contain my curiosity. Yes, Marilyn answered. Last night. Apparently he was shocked. The new owner said that a man came with a suitcase and started shouting that this was his house. They showed him the documents and called the police. He left before the cops arrived. I tried to imagine Dexter's face when he saw strangers in his house. His shock, anger, confusion. I felt neither satisfaction nor gloating, only tiredness and a slight sadness for what could have been, but didn't happen. Did he try to contact you? Marilyn asked. He called several times, but I didn't answer. He left several voicemails. He was yelling, accusing, threatening to sue. Then he started begging me to call him back. I deleted all the messages. Are you ready to talk to him? I thought about it. No, not yet. Maybe later when everything is settled with the divorce. But right now, I need time to myself. Marilyn approved of my decision. She has always been a wise and understanding friend. It's a pity that we have grown apart in recent years. But now I had a chance to renew old friendships and create new ones. The next day, I went for a walk to explore my new neighborhood. Portland was completely different from Boulder. More humid, greener, with a different rhythm of life. But I loved it. I felt like with every step I took, I was shedding the burden of the past and opening up to new opportunities. In the evening, Ashlyn called me. Mom, Dad is trying to contact me. He's looking for you. What did you tell him? That I don't know where you are. That you'll tell him when you're ready. Thanks, honey. He's really angry, Mom. He says you had no right to sell the house. That he's going to sue you. Let him, I said calmly. I have all the necessary documents. A power of attorney that gives me the right to act on his behalf, and proof of his infidelity if it comes to divorce court. You're so calm, Ashlyn said, surprised. I've never seen you like this. I finally feel like I'm in control of my life, I replied. We talked for a long time. For the first time in many years, it was a real, frank conversation. Ashlyn told me about her work, her friends, her plans for the future. I shared my impressions of Portland and my thoughts on what I would do next. When we finished talking, I went out onto the small balcony of my apartment. The sun was already setting, painting the sky pink and purple. The streetlights were on, and people were coming home from work. In this city, no one knew me. No one knew my story, my mistakes, my disappointments. I could be anyone, start from scratch. The thought was frightening and exciting at the same time. The phone rang again. Dexter's number. I hesitated, but then decided to answer it. Sooner or later, we'd have to talk. Tallulah! His voice was full of anger and confusion. What have you done? Where are you? Hi, Dexter, I replied calmly. How was your trip to San Francisco? He fell silent. I could almost physically feel him trying to gather his thoughts, to decide how to react to my knowledge. It's not what you think, he finally said. It's complicated. No, it's very simple. You cheat on me with another woman. You buy a house with her. You're planning a new life. I just decided not to wait for you to tell me the truth. You had no right to sell the house, he shouted again. I'm going to sue you. You'll give me my money back. Your money is in our joint account. You're half of the sale of the house, and I have a power of attorney authorizing me to act on your behalf. Don't you remember? You signed it when we bought this house. He went silent again. I could almost see him struggling to remember the document, realizing I was right. Where are you? He finally asked, quieter now. Come back so we can talk about this. Talk about what, Dexter? Your betrayal? Your lies? Your plans for the future with another woman? Tallulah, please. He suddenly changed his tone, pleading. I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you. Then why didn't you tell me the truth? Why didn't you ask for a divorce like an honest man? He didn't answer. We both knew the answer. Dexter had never been known for his courage in difficult situations. It was easier for him to lie than to admit his feelings. I'll file for divorce, I said. You don't have to worry. I won't ask for more than I'm entitled to. I hope you'll be happy with her. Tallulah, don't do this. His voice was shaking. We can fix this. No, Dexter, not anymore. Goodbye. I pressed the disconnect button and turned off the phone. My heart was pounding, not with pain or fear, but with the realization of my strength and determination. I did it. I told the truth. Stood up for myself. Closed this chapter of my life. I stood on the balcony for a long time, watching the sky darken and the stars light up. Somewhere else, in another city, Dexter was standing in the middle of his new, empty life, realizing that he had lost not only his home, but also the woman who had been by his side for more than 20 years. And here I stood, in a new city, with new opportunities, ready to start over. Portland greeted me with rain. A gray veil covered the sky, but I didn't feel sad. On the contrary, these damp mists, green trees, and old brick buildings made me feel cozy and excited about new opportunities. My small apartment on the third floor of an old building in the Selwood neighborhood was the first space that was truly mine in many years. I spent the first few days setting up my new home. I unpacked boxes, hung up my clothes, and arranged my few personal belongings. It was strange to see my life reduced to a few boxes. But at the same time, it felt right, as if I had shed unnecessary weight and kept only what was really important. The furniture in the apartment was simple but functional. A sofa, a small dining table, a bed, a bookshelf. I didn't spend a lot of money on furnishing it. I didn't know if I would stay here for long. But I bought a few plants to add some life to the place and hung a painting with an ocean view on the wall that I found in a small gallery nearby. My apartment windows overlooked the park, where people were walking even in the rain, walking their dogs, running, just enjoying nature. I sat on the windowsill for hours watching them, gradually feeling like a part of this city. On my third day in Portland, I decided to look for a job. Not so much because of the money. The part of the house sale allowed me not to worry about finances for a while, but to keep myself busy, meet new people, and feel useful. I updated my resume and started sending it to various accounting firms in the city. I also registered on a freelance platform where I could provide services remotely. It was new for me to look for a job at my age, in a new city where no one knew me. But I felt excited, like I was opening a new chapter in my life. My phone kept ringing off the hook with calls and messages from Dexter. I didn't answer, but I didn't block his number either. Something was stopping me. Perhaps a subconscious feeling that we had to end our relationship in the right way, with respect for the 26 years we had spent together. On the fourth day, I received an email from Dexter's lawyer. He demanded an explanation for the sale of the house and threatened legal action. I forwarded the letter to my lawyer, whom I had hired before I left Boulder. Marilyn recommended me a good lawyer who specialized in family law, and he assured me that legally I had not broken the law by selling the house. The power of attorney that your husband signed gives you the right to act on his behalf in real estate transactions, he explained. You didn't misappropriate his share, you transferred it to a joint account. From the point of view of the law, everything is in the clear. It was reassuring, but I knew Dexter wouldn't give up that easily. He's always been stubborn, especially when he feels he's been outmaneuvered or deceived in some way. For a week after the move, I felt like I was in a fog. A new city, new sounds, new smells. I started exploring the neighborhood and found a cozy coffee shop a few blocks from my house that served the best tea I'd ever had. I spent my mornings there, reading a book or just watching the passers-by. Sometimes waves of doubt would wash over me. Was I right to change my life so abruptly? Shouldn't I have tried to talk to Dexter, to give our marriage another chance? But then I remembered the photos in that folder, his lies, the years we spent close to each other but not together, and my doubts receded. On my 10th day in Portland, the phone rang. It wasn't Dexter's number. Tallulah Woodward? A woman's voice said when I answered. Yes, it's me. My name is Bryn Prescott. I froze. The woman who, had changed my life so dramatically was on the line. I didn't know what to expect. Accusations, insults, threats. I wanted to apologize, she continued after a pause, for everything that happened. I didn't realize Dexter wasn't telling you the truth. He assured me that you had agreed to a divorce, that you knew about us. Her voice was trembling. What do you want, Bryn? I asked calmly. Nothing. I just want you to know the truth. Dexter isn't as bad as he seems. He was just afraid to hurt you. I almost laughed. Afraid to hurt me? And that's why he lied, cheated, planned a new life behind my back? If that's all, Bryn, thanks for calling, I said, trying to stay calm. No, that's not all, she sighed. Dexter's been looking for you. He's very upset. He says that you stole his money, his house. I didn't steal anything. His share of the house sale is in our joint account. I know, he told me. But he's still angry. And he's going to Portland. He knows you're there. I'm tense. How did he know? I haven't told anyone except Marilyn and Ashlyn. How does he know? He hired a private investigator. I thought you should know. He's coming to Portland tomorrow. My hands went cold. It wasn't that I was afraid of Dexter. He'd never been aggressive. But the thought of meeting him was unsettling. Thank you for the heads up, I said. Tallulah. Bryn's voice grew quieter. I really didn't mean for this to happen. When I met Dexter, he told me that you two were already divorced, just living together out of habit. I would never. It doesn't matter, Bryn, I interrupted. What happened is what happened. I don't hold it against you. It was the truth. I really didn't hate that woman. She didn't know me. She didn't owe me anything. She fell in love with a man who reciprocated. How could I blame her? You're an amazing woman, Bryn said after a pause. Thank you. And I'm sorry. She hung up and I sat there for a long time thinking about the conversation. Dexter is going to Portland. Tomorrow. I had to prepare for this meeting. The next day I didn't go to the coffee shop as usual. I stayed home waiting for a call or a knock on the door. It came at noon. A call to the intercom, a familiar voice. Tallulah, it's me. We need to talk. I pressed the button, letting him into the entrance. My heart was pounding, but I decided to be calm and collected. No scenes, no accusations. Just a conversation between adults solving practical issues. Dexter stood on the doorstep, tired, with bags under his eyes, his shirt rumpled. Hi, he said, trying to smile. Can I come in? I stepped back, letting him into the apartment. He looked around the space, a small living room combined with a kitchen, a door to a bedroom, minimal furniture. Not bad, he said, sitting down on the couch. Cozy. I sat in the chair across from him, keeping my distance. What do you want, Dexter? He sighed, dropping his shoulders. Why did you do this, Tallulah? Why didn't you just talk to me? About what? About you cheating on me with Bryn for over a year? About the fact that you bought a house together in San Francisco? That you've been traveling with her and her family, lying to me, telling me they were business trips? His face changed. He hadn't expected me to know so much. You were spying on me? No, I just found Rep's earring in your drawer. Then I ran into her at the coffee shop by chance. Then I saw you and Bryn in that gallery. And finally, I found the folder with the photos and the deeds to the house. You could have just told me the truth, Dexter. Our marriage was dead a long time ago. We both knew it. I wouldn't have kept you. I was afraid to hurt you, he muttered. And that's why you lied? Is that why you planned a new life behind my back? It's not fear of getting hurt, Dexter. It's a fear of taking responsibility. He didn't say anything. I could see him trying to find the words to justify himself, but he couldn't. I want you back, he finally said. We can start over. I'll cut all ties with Bryn. We'll buy a new house. I shook my head. No, Dexter, that's not possible. Not after everything that's happened. Not after years of alienation and lies. We're not the same people we used to be. Because of one mistake? It's not just one mistake, I answered calmly. It's the years of living next to each other, but not together. When we lost respect for each other. When our daughter stopped coming home because she couldn't stand the atmosphere in our house. He lowered his head again. My words had hit the mark. I don't blame you for finding happiness with Bryn, I continued. We all deserve happiness, but I do blame you for lying, for not having the courage to look me in the eye and tell me the truth. And you? He suddenly looked up at me. You sold our house behind my back. You left without saying a word. After I found the evidence of your betrayal, I reminded him. After I realized that you were planning a new life without me, I saw no other way out. We fell silent. Outside the window, the rain intensified, pounding on the glass. It seemed that nature itself reflected the tension of our conversation. What now? Dexter finally asked. Are you going to file for divorce? Yes. My lawyer is already preparing the documents. I'm not going to ask for more than I'm entitled to. You already have half the proceeds from the sale of the house in your account. We'll settle the rest in a civilized manner. He nodded, as if accepting the inevitable. And you? Are you going to stay here? In Portland? I don't know. Maybe. I like it here so far. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain. I watched him, noting how his posture had changed over the years. The once straight shoulders were now slightly lowered, and more gray hair had appeared in his hair. I did love you, Tallulah, he said quietly, not turning around. A long time ago. I know, I replied. And I loved you. But that's not enough to build a life. You also need honesty and respect. He nodded, still looking out the window. Are you happy here? By yourself? I thought about it. Was I happy? It was too early to talk about happiness, but I felt something else, freedom, relief, hope for the future. I'm on the way to happiness, I answered honestly. He finally turned around, and I saw sadness in his eyes. Not because of losing me, that loss had happened long ago, long before he met Bryn. I have to go, he said. My plane leaves tonight. To San Francisco? I asked. He nodded without looking at me. Yes, Bryn is waiting. She seems like a good person, I said, surprising us both with my sincerity. She called me yesterday, warned me you were coming. Dexter raised his eyebrows. She did? I didn't know. She was worried. About me. For you. She's special, he said quietly. He didn't finish his sentence, but I understood. Different from me. And it was true. Bryn and I were different people with different histories, and Dexter found something in her that he hadn't with me. And that was okay. I want you to be happy, I said, and I was surprised that I really meant it. He looked at me with gratitude and sadness. And I wish happiness for you. You deserve it. We stood opposite each other, people who had once promised to be together for the rest of their lives, and now we were saying goodbye, perhaps forever. So many years, so many memories, and it all ends with this quiet conversation on a rainy day. Goodbye, Tallulah, Dexter said, moving toward the door. When the door closed, I felt a strange emptiness. Not sadness, not regret, but emptiness. As if an important chapter of my life had ended, and now I had blank pages in front of me, ready for a new story. I went to the window and watched Dexter leave the house, open his umbrella, and walk down the street until his figure dissolved into the rain. A part of me went with him, the part that belonged to our shared past. But a bigger part of me stayed here, ready for a new beginning. The following weeks flew by unnoticed. I found a job at a small accounting firm that specialized in helping small businesses. The work was interesting, my colleagues were friendly, and I gradually got used to the new rhythm of life. Ashlyn came to visit me for the weekend, and we spent a few wonderful days together, exploring Portland, talking, reconnecting with the bond that had almost been lost during the years of tension in our family. "You've changed, Mom," she said as we sat in a coffee shop near my house. "I haven't seen you so alive in a long time." I smiled, realizing that she was right. Something in me had indeed changed. It was as if I had been wearing a heavy shell all these years and had finally shed it. "I feel younger," I admitted, "like I'm 30 again with my whole life ahead of me." "You are," she took my hand. "Your whole life is ahead of you." In June, when my temporary lease came to an end, I decided to stay in Portland. I found a small but cozy apartment in the Pearl District, closer to the city center and my new job. I started buying new furniture, not just temporary furniture, but furniture that reflected my taste and personality. The divorce papers were signed without any drama. Dexter did not argue, did not try to complicate the process. Perhaps our last conversation helped us both accept the inevitable and move on. Sometimes I would receive short messages from him about some documents to be signed, about the sale of the last property we owned together. Businesslike, polite messages without emotion or accusations. And it was the right thing to do. We had become strangers, once united by our marriage, but now only by our shared past. Ashlyn told me that Dexter and Bryn got married in August. A small ceremony in San Francisco, just their closest friends and family. I felt a slight stab, not jealousy, but the realization of how quickly everything was changing. But also relief, as if the last ties to the past had finally been severed. When autumn came, I felt that I had finally fully settled into my new city, my new life. I made several new friends, colleagues from work, neighbors, people from the book club I joined. I started taking art classes, a childhood dream I had been putting off for years. My apartment gradually filled with new things, new memories. My first paintings appeared on the walls, not masterpieces, of course, but important to me as a symbol of a new beginning. On the bookshelf were books that I had always wanted to read, but didn't have time. Marilyn came to visit me twice, and we spent wonderful weekends together, reminiscing about the past, discussing the present and the future. She used to joke that I looked 10 years younger, and I realized that it was not just a compliment. I really felt younger, freer, more alive. One evening, as I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sun go down over the horizon, I thought about the journey I had taken over the past 6 months. From a woman who lived in a toxic marriage, afraid of change, to a person who dared to start over at the age of 54. It was not easy. There were moments of doubt, fear, and loneliness. But there were also moments of joy, discovery, and growth. And I knew I had made the right choice. I took a small earring with a turquoise stone out of my pocket, the only thing I took from my past life as a reminder. Not of betrayal or pain, but of the moment when I finally found the courage to change my life. With a smile, I leaned over the balcony railing and let the earring fall from my hand, watching it fall and disappear somewhere below. I didn't need any more reminders. The past was behind me, and the future was full of possibilities. I was finally free. Free from toxic relationships, from fears, from other people's expectations. Free to be myself, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow. Free to build my life the way I want. And that was the biggest victory. Not over Dexter or the circumstances, but over myself, over my fears, doubts, and the habit of tolerating the things that made me unhappy. I didn't know what the future would bring me. Perhaps a new relationship, perhaps new adventures, perhaps just a calm, harmonious life. But I knew one thing. It belonged to me, and only to me. The sun disappeared behind the horizon, painting the sky deep purple. The new day was ending, but my new story was just beginning, and I was ready for every page of it.